I'm Jason Fitz from Rivals.com, hanging out with Illinois head coach Bret Bielema. Coach, big day for you. Signing day is always a big day. So tell me a little bit about what you like particularly about your class this year.
I think this class embodies kind of what we're all about. 19 kids, 16 high school players, 3 JUCO players, all 3 junior college players were original qualifiers out of high school. We're kind of probably undersized, under-recruited, underdeveloped guys that now are full throttle. Our receiver from Iowa Central was a nation's leading receiver. Our defensive end, outside linebacker, Daniel Brown, was leading the country in sacks for the entire junior college world. So, and then Chase Canada, a corner out of Trinity that we're excited about. And then 16 high school players that really fit the mold of what we're looking for.
You mentioned underdeveloped, and something your program is proud of is the development of players. But in a transfer portal world, how do you sell that to everybody?
Well, I think these guys are developed now. My point being they were overlooked in the junior college world or out of high school because they maybe, they were full qualifiers. Maybe they weren't what everybody is looking for, but they are now. I think we expect those 3 guys to play. I don't think we're an underdevelopment program. I do think we have players that play their best football in year 2, 3, and 4, right? You see guys that have literally changed their bodies. Johnny Newton, when we came here, had started a handful of games. Now he leaves as a Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year, probably a top 20 draft pick, someone that literally changed his body, his way of play, and the demeanor that he plays the game with, and now is going to turn it into a $20, $25 million decision.
Stick there for a second, because when you're sitting in living rooms, you have him. You also have Witherspoon, who obviously is just absolutely being great so far in the NFL. How does that sort of influence your sales pitch when you're in living rooms?
When I got here, one of the first screenshots I showed him was a screenshot of Joe Thomas, J.J. Watt, and Russell Wilson. And I said, hey, I know you know who these guys are. What I don't know is I don't know you yet. But I think the version of them is sitting here today, right? And literally out of that room came Devin Witherspoon, who ended up being the 5th pick, could be the defensive rookie of the year this year. Johnny Newton was an unknown name at that time that, like I said, defensive player of the year in our conference, consensus All-American, and put himself in a great position, and some more to come into this draft class. We took a guy, Isaiah Adams, a couple of years ago out of Garden City Junior College that is projected to be one of the top 4 guards taken in this year's draft, a guy that could literally take that decision when he came here. Now might turn it into a $20 to $25 million decision.
I mean, you talk about your conference, and everybody talks about conference expansion constantly growing. For you, what impact does that have in the way that you're approaching the development of your program?
Jace, great question. We have a recruiting base that we kind of, in high school recruiting, we go really the state of Illinois, any border state, and then we'd like to go into New Jersey and the Florida area. That's kind of our consensus of what we do in high school. But in this portal world, we literally go coast to coast. Last week, we did all portal recruiting. There was one day that I was in Alabama, Louisiana, Texas, and then Mississippi all in one day, right? There was one day that we started in Alabama, went to Mississippi, and flew to Toronto, Canada, right? So, it takes you literally all over the country. I think the addition of those West Coast schools into our conference now, we play at Oregon next year. It just brings a national level of recruiting that's really unprecedented in this league.
We hear a lot of cynicism from fans about NIL and its impact. When you're going from these cities to cities and people to people, how does NIL really impact the conversations you're having?
It's definitely entered the conversation unlike any other time in my coaching career. It's readily grown over the last 3 years. A lot of people are going to vent their frustrations, and I get it. I do find it entertaining when I see these schools being lauded for their recruiting efforts, and it's really a checkbook effort, right? And I get it, right? It's what we're dealing with now. But for us today, these 19 kids, NIL came up, but it wasn't a driving factor. It was more about doing the right plays at the right time and the right decision. I think the NIL world can be great, right? Like last year, I had 5 players that forego a draft, right? A lot of guys that were going to be 3rd, 4th, 5th round picks. Johnny was probably realistically looking at a 4th, 5th round pick. I believe he signed an NIL deal in the neighborhood of $250,000, and now he's going to turn that into possibly $25 million. There's no return in a year that's greater than that. I don't care how good you hit it in the stock market. What he did by that last year and getting closer to his degree and earning money and a draft status, it's unprecedented. And all 5 of our guys, Keith Randolph, literally in that same wheelhouse, probably has turned himself into a 2nd, 3rd round pick. And you're looking at somewhere $5 to $10, $15 million. That return on an NIL opportunity is really what it's all about.
It's interesting because I think that is a part of the conversation lost with kids that are thinking about the draft, for example. But it also preaches patience to everybody as you try not to chase pennies when there are eventually dollars out there to be had. Do you find, though, when you're talking to kids that that's a harder message to get through? Like, I'll be honest, Coach, when I was 18, if you offered me $1 million, I wouldn't have had the level head to, handle it that I can handle it as an adult.
I think the $1 million offers are out there. They're probably a little bit fewer than what people actually think. And then, the quarterback market and all that goes into it, I get it. But what's getting silly now is some guys that, they're literally throwing, this school is offering this school is going to double it and make it this. The portal world is definitely ingrained in that thing. But I think you still got to talk common sense, right? Like Johnny, literally, when we were talking about the number that he was getting from our NIL Icon Collective, there were schools that were offering him 4 or 5 times that, right? And his presence, his awareness, his family said, you're the ones that took him from where he is that got him where he is. And I would say this, NIL is instant money. That's what the I stands for. NFL is forever money. And we fortunately have proven over the track record of our coaching, my head coaching career, and what we've done here, we've taken guys that literally were Devin Witherspoon was a 0 star, 0.0 star ranking, and was the 5th pick in the NFL draft, right? Signed a contract over $30 million. That's the numbers that people pay attention to.
I want to leave you with this because I think there's such an important message right now for coaches and their programs and who they are. And in this world, you've seen a lot of football, Coach. You've been in a lot of places. Who is Bret Bielema and what is Illinois football to you?
We're tough. We're smart, dependable. If you cut us open, that's our DNA. I don't give a, we got to, this will be I believe our 3rd draft in a row where we'll have a Canadian player drafted, right? And, I don't give a hoot if you're from Canada, Florida, or you're from Springfield, Illinois. No matter your environment, we believe in that. I think that's our DNA. If you have a chance every Saturday to be the toughest, most smart, dependable football team, you'll have a chance to win. It has nothing to do with your 40, how well you throw a football, how well you can catch or run. It's how you play the game and the way you think. We can do everything else. You do have to have a number of skill sets. I get it, right? But there's a lot of really good players out there that, it really in the NFL is made up of 25% super freaks, and 75% of those rosters are good players that know how to play the game, who have enough ability, but it's not supernatural, right? So that's the guys that I think will help us win championships and get us where we want to be.
Who's the Justin Moore of Illinois football? Little guy that talks his talk. Really talented, spunky little guy. Come on.
I would say I would defer to the defensive side of the ball, and we have a safety, Xavier Scott, who literally was an under-recruited player, didn't sign on national signing date. We blue-shirted, brought him in, gave him a scholarship when classes started as a true freshman, started every game for us this year, all Big Ten player. Unfortunately, hurt his knee towards the end of the year, but I think this guy's going to be something special. He's a scrappy guy that knows how to make music and make everybody happy.
I love it, Coach. Thanks so much for the time on a busy day. We appreciate you, my friend.
Thank you, Jace. Appreciate it. ILL.